Hello, this is Anthony with Copley. Today I'll be showing you how to use the GP Pro EX software. It's with Proface. They're a Modbus TCP master. So we open up their software. It takes us to this screen. We're going to create a new project. I have a GP 3034 series, and then we're going to say that we're going to configure the Copley as a Modbus IDA, General Modbus TCP master. I have a BE2 that I'm going to use. So it takes us to this screen. So now let me connect to the BE2. Let's take a look at it. We're going to connect to CME. So over serial. So if we look at the BE2, I loaded the Ethernet firmware. So we have the firmware 4.48 ENet version. So the way I can just double check that is by getting the network options parameter, and that bit 9 is set. So that's how you know that the EtherCAT is disabled on this EtherCAT drive, and it's now an Ethernet drive. So TCP is enabled. If we go into CVM, I just wrote a simple CVM program, and it's just a simple loop. It'll do a trajectory update on both axes, doing relative move, and it'll keep looping and doing that move. And that's it. So, one important note is that the IP address needs to be configured. So you can just set the IP address to any value that's not in use by your operating system. So the way you do that is, let's say we get from RAM, whatever I set it to. I set it to 192.168.11.13. So the way you would do that is by kind of doing what I just did, which is you just go backwards and look at each byte. So hex C0, that's 192, and then A8 is 168, 0B is 11, 0D is 13. So that's the IP address, 192.168.11.13, that I chose. So I loaded that into RAM and flash. So let me just write that down. 0x, 0D, 0B, A8C0. So I'm going to set that in RAM and in flash. Now, the IP address is not axis specific, it's drive specific. So for the whole drive, that IP address is used. You can't set the IP address to different values for different axes. However, the way you differentiate in Modbus between axes is using the unit ID. So we'll get into that. So let's close. We'll keep it open for monitoring. And yeah, so here we are in the Pro EX software. What I will do is let's create a button. And then another button. And then we'll create some text fields. And then I'll copy that. It's a little bit bigger. Okay, so what you do is you can double click on this text field, and then this takes you to the monitor word address. So this will be sending, this is where you would set the parameter that you want to monitor. So if we go to the Copley Modbus app note, it discusses all those settings of the IP address and the network configuration, loading the Ethernet firmware in the drive. But then we talk about the standard Copley parameters. It's one interesting note is the the proface. You're gonna take these parameters here, so the Copley parameters, and for Modbus you have to multiply them times 2, and then split those into 2 different 16-bit Modbus registers. That's for parameters that are, say, 32 bits in size. That's what we're going to do. So I'll kind of walk you through that. So let me go to the parameter dictionary. So these are all the Copley parameters. And we'll look at the actual position parameter, parameter 17 in hex. So if I go to calculator, 17 times 2 is 2e. So I'm going to use 2e and 2f. They're going to hold the 32-bit parameter 0x17 in those 2 16-bit Modbus registers. So I have to access those registers. Now the interesting thing about Proface is that they apply an offset of 400,001 to every. So this would be getting parameter 0, which is, I think, is like a current loop gain or something. So I'm going to add 2e to this, and this is a decimal number, so I have to convert 2e. So that's 46. So what I'll do is just say, always use the keypad, the little keypad in here. So I'll say 46 plus 1 is 47, and then enter. So another quick note, you have to select this 4 here, because that's the data type that we're using. It's a word. It's not a bit, which is called a coil in Modbus. So yeah. And then we will say that this is signed. Or actually, let's say that it's a 16-bit hex number. And that's it. It's 47. Same thing here. For 8 is for the next, so 2e and 2f. And then for axes B, so let me actually go ahead, and we're going to set up axes B now. So if we go to the project tab, and we go to double click here, device PLC. So I have a 2 axes drive. So what I have to do is I have to set up the IP address. So for this drive, like we said, it's 192.168.11 and 13. And you always talk to port number 502. Use a unit ID. We can use unit ID 1 for axes 1. And that's it. now I also want to add a second PLC. That's for axis 2. And it'll be the same IP address. And that's the unit ID for the second axis. That's as defined in this app note. You use it's 1 for axis 1, 1 for axis 1, 2 for axis 2 for the unit identifier. Alright, and there we go. So those are two PLC Modbus IDAs. So it's basically our two axes. Now I can go back here, I can double click on this text field and I can apply it to the second PLC. 4.7. There we go. So now what I'll do is we'll insert a text field here. We'll just say, say stop CVM. So we're going to start and stop a CVM program. So I'll move this one over here, copy it, put it over here. And that's that. Now I'll make this button green. So I'll go into color and change it to green. So one note is for what we're going to do is send a command to start and stop a CVM program. So if we go back to the app note here, that'll be to 0x 3000, the Copley indexer. Oh no, wait, that's we'll be sending it to 2000. Special register to perform commands. So if we go down, okay, here it is. So we'll be writing to this one, 0x2001, start and stop a CVM program. So all that I have to do is specify. We have to find that address and then write two different values to it. -1 to stop it, and then the file number to start it. Yeah, so write the program number of the CVM program. CVM defaults and file numbers is 0, so we'll just write a 0 to start it and -1 to stop it. So yeah, that's that. So let me just write down 2001, and then we have 8,193. So we're going to take that number, we're going to add that 400,001 offset, and we get this number, 408,194. So that's that register in Proface. So I go in here, and it doesn't matter which axis because CVM is not axis specific. So let's see here. We will be we need to go to a word switch. This is not a bit switch, we're writing a whole 16-bit word. So we will be writing in hex, and then we'll make this one the -1 value, which is all F's. And there we go. So that'll write to the correct address. And yeah, I believe that's all that we need to do to set this up. I'll do the same thing for this start button. And that would be it. So this will display the first 16 bits of the position for each axis, and then the second 16 bits. So the counts will be broken up into two different 16-bit chunks, and then you can start and stop a CVM program. And that's it. That's how you would create a project and in Proface to talk to a BE2. So now what I'll do is I'll save the program. I'll just save it as today's. And then I'm going to hit the transfer project button. So here I have to actually transfer the project to the Modbus master. So right now I'm connected over LAN.
Okay. So I hit the little black square there, and then I hit the offline button. Take the unit offline. Hit the main unit settings button. Ethernet local settings. And then here I can specify the IP address. It's 192.168.0, and then we'll say 99. And then we'll save it. Back, save, yes, exit, yes. And that's how you would change the IP address in the Proface unit.
Okay, so I'm going to send the project to the unit. I have to make sure that the IP address so I'm connected to the Proface over LAN. So I go to, I have to find the, I'm connected to a USB to Ethernet adapter, so I have to find the IP address of the adapter. So type ipconfig/all. And there's the IP address, 192.168.0.100. So the first 3 bytes of that IPv4 address have to match with the Proface in order to actually transfer the data. So I go to transfer, if you go to settings, transfer settings, we're connected over LAN. Also, you have to check this PISV checkbox. And then, yeah, so that adapter should talk to the unit because I configured the unit with the first 3 bytes. And there it is, the correct IP address. So So I have to, so right now I'm downloading connected directly to my adapter, but after that I'm going to disconnect from my adapter and I'm going to connect to the drive again. And then I have to change the IP address in the proface to match the first 3 bytes in the drive. So it'll be, 192.168.11 and then dot, whatever you want, dot 1. So, so this worked. It's great. Yeah. And that's it.